on the Isle of Man, there still lived a race of giants called Foars. Now, Foars were big, and they were ugly, and they by far were not the sharpest monsters in the box. But there were two things that they loved to do. First, they loved to throw rocks at one another, and some people say that's how the Isle of Man got its present formation, was by the way the Foars threw rocks at each other. But the other things that Foars loved to do, they loved to spin. They could spin like the wind, they could spin like a dream, and in their rough hands, the wool became spun fine, and the wheel sang. Now at that time that there were still Foars on the Isle of Man, there was a lazy wife. There were two things that lazy wife liked to do as well. She liked to warm her backside by the fire, and she liked to gossip with her neighbors. Those were the two things that she was best at. Now, she did cook a little because she liked to eat. But she never spun, she never wove, she never stitched a lick of clothing. She said, time enough, there'll be time enough for that. Well, that was fine for her. She could pile on ragged skirt over ragged skirt, jumper over sweater, and wrapped herself in tattered old shawls, and she could keep herself warm, especially as she did her first most favorite thing. But her poor husband, he was a shepherd all day outside in the hills, wearing threadbare pants, tattered coats, and scarves with holes in them. He was sick to death of it. And one day he came home and dropped a very large bag of wool at her feet, and he said,
"Now, lazy wife, we've had enough of this. Me. It is time for you to get up off of your you-know-what and start spinning some new clothes for me. I'm threadbare. I'm going out there to work every day. I have nothing to keep me warm. Now, if you do not spin enough wool to make clothes for me for this coming winter, 2 weeks, and you'll be out. You'll be in the ditch."
She knew he wasn't kidding. So the very next morning, she went up into the attic and she brought her spinning wheel and she set it right in the center of the room. She got some of that wool and she tried to work the pedals and she tried to spin, and she got one lumpy, bumpy mess of a ball of thread spun, and then she went back to warming her backside by the fire and gossiping with her neighbors. But she left that spinning wheel in the center of the room, and 1 week later, her husband came home and said,
"Have you done any wool for me?"
Oh yes, of course.
How much?
I've been spinning every day.
You've been spinning every day?
Every day.
Every day?
Every day.
How many have you got, my dear?
I don't really know. I've been keeping them up in the attic. I'll tell you what. I'll go up, I'll toss them down, you count them and toss them back because I don't want them to get dirty on the floor.
Fine, I want to know how many there are.
So she went up in the attic, she got that poor, miserable excuse for a ball of thread, and she tossed it down.
1.
And he tossed it up. She tossed it down.
2.
And he tossed it up. She tossed it down.
3.
He tossed it up. And back and forth and back and forth until they had counted 27 times.
27,
oh,
indeed.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
You're a wonderful wife.
I know. Well, now she knew she was really in trouble.